What is going on, you guys? My name's Ryan, the official host here at Reddit Voice, bringing you guys a brand new episode of r/MaliciousCompliance. Before we jump into that, though, I'd really appreciate it if you could hit that subscribe button and that notification bell to stay up to date on all the latest videos. Facility closes at 8 sharp. I used to work at a drive-up storage facility. We had pretty cheap prices and a few deals, so we got 3 types of people renting. Normal people, business people, and homeless people who try to live out of the storage units and stay in the facility most of the day, rearranging their storage unit so they had an excuse to stay. Now our story begins with the normal people, unfortunately. Most normal people as normal as you would think. They're moving, needing a place to store stuff, and most of the time they aren't happy with moving, and that makes sense. I try to be patient and kind. One facility rule the owner had me enforce was that we need to kick everyone out of the facility at 8 sharp, no exceptions. The office closes before then, and my job was to drive back at 8 every night and check the whole facility. By the way, I'm not on the clock for time, I'm just supposed to do a security check. Enter a family with an older lady and her daughter renting a unit. They were easy to work with, and I respect elders a lot, so I usually try to be extra friendly to older people. Move-in day. They've got a big old truck full of stuff. It looked like a lot of stuff was going to be stacked in the unit. Of course, when I come back later that night, they're still unloading it. They had a bunch of guys helping them, and I drive up to remind them of the rules. They must be out by 8. But we're almost done. Can we get more and just need a few more minutes? With previous experience, I know how this was gonna go. I repeated the rules and told them that they also signed a contract that they'd obey these rules. But I said I'd check the rest of the facility first so that they could wrap up. They say thank you. I finish and drive around the front, and of course they aren't there. I get out of my car and walk over to them, and they're still going strong unloading. So I decide to pressure a little and walk over and let them know once again that the facility is closed. I stand next to them for 30 minutes, and they finally decide they aren't going to finish tonight and pack up. 50 minutes after the facility closed, I let them out of the locked gate and went home at 9. Now my boss caught wind of this. My boss was a real stickler for the rules and stuff. He kinda had a motion that people would follow contract rules if they were enforced. But I knew people would just push our limits. My boss told me that we needed to keep the gate locked after closing time and we can't have people staying late. I didn't want to stay that late either. The next day, they came back late. They got there as the office was closing in the evening to continue unloading. I really hoped they got the message the first time, but lo and behold, when I came in for security check, they were there unloading in what seemed to be a new load. I wasn't as patient this time. I wasn't rude, but I was definitely being more blunt with how I was talked to them. I let them know again that they needed to leave immediately. Okay, we're just finishing up. I had heard that one before. This time I circled the unit blocks, and they were at every time I passed, I let them know. I was done with the rest of the facility. They seemed to get the picture, but the clock was still ticking, and by the time they closed the unit, I tailgated their truck out of there until it had already been another 40 minutes past. I was tired of getting lectured by my boss on how we need to enforce these rules. For some reason, he had a mindset that I was letting them stay and being nice. No, the first time was nice, but I wasn't letting them stay, and I can't physically force these people out. MC time, baby. The third day when we were finishing the unloading, while on site, I saw them and went up to them and just gave them a pass-by and reminded them that they needed to wrap up before 8. Later that night, I check, and yep, they're still there. I'm getting a bit peeved at this point, so I check the facility quickly and I decide to drive out. The front gate has a code lock that denies codes after 8:10. Yeah, there was even a grace period. Since they had let them out every time, they didn't know their code wouldn't work. At least since they didn't seem to know the rules, and they definitely didn't read that in the bold highlight in our contract. So as per my boss's order, I left the gate locked and left. I lived closely, so I went home, got a snack, watched a couple shows, and then about 9:40 p.m. went back to the facility to find them stuck at the gate. They were not happy, but as I let them out, I said to them, "The facility closes at 8 sharp and this gate locks. We aren't always around to let you out, and that's why we post the close times everywhere. A lie, since I checked it every day and I didn't want them to think they could get away with it anymore. They just angrily left, but I didn't have a problem with them again. I do feel bad for the older lady, but I don't know, they just weren't listening. Edit. Wow, I've never gotten an award before. Thank you, kind stranger, but what do I do now? TLDR. People wouldn't stop staying late at the facility, so they got left behind at a locked gate for almost 2 hours. If you don't like it, quit. Message received loud and clear. I'm a pasty white Caucasian guy. I pretty much look like a ginger, only I'm not a redhead. This is relevant to the story. For almost 8 years, I worked at a popular US chain restaurant which specializes in breakfast food that may or may not heavily feature various flavors of pancakes. Over time, several managers came and went, but the one who stuck around was the ladder-climbing, brown-nosing GM, whom we'll call Hope. A narcissistic, verbally abusive, control freak, mommy dearest knockoff. Hope she had the most grandiose opinion of herself. She had a way of making please and thank you sound like screw you. I did my best to get along with her, although when dealing with someone who thrives on conflict, the best often isn't enough. She made it clear it was her way or the highway. She often spouted couch phrases such as, "If you don't like the way I run my store, quit." Among Hope's countless trademark annoying traits, including breathing, coming into work wasted, and talking smack about everyone and guest and staff alike, she often delivered orders without allowing any responses, then concluded those interactions with "mkay, as if that couldn't get any more obnoxious. Her faux sincerity was almost always accompanied by an annoying crypt keeper cackle. Then she'd roll her crap brown eyes, toss her mouse brown hair over her shoulder, and walk away. Funny story. One Christmas, I was unlucky enough to draw Hope's name from the Secret Santa gift exchange. I seriously considered buying her a batch of wire hangers with a card simply saying, "No wire hangers ever." I decided against it for the simple reason that it was no secret that I did not like her. It would have been totally obvious who bought her the gag gift. I was one of those highly valued employees. By the way I was treated completely belied the compliments and accolades I received, i.e. my schedule being flipped without consent, days off requests being denied while other employees, mostly older married women and single mothers of small children, as well as Hope's drinking buddies, got preferential treatment, always taking the side of the guest when they were angling for a free meal, etc. Perhaps the worst was the bullying and pettiness amongst certain employees. It was like high school. It got to the point that I flat out refused to exchange numbers with or add any coworkers on social media. It was a rule that I stood by for a very long time. Don't mix business with personal. I've somewhat relaxed that regulation, but for the most part it's still in place. Once while in the dining room, another employee poked me in the face with a tampon right in front of guests, as well as Hope and Sunny, the drunk assistant manager. I filed an official complaint and nothing came of it. This is one such occasion where they couldn't claim ignorance. My complaint made it real and they had to address it. Address it they did. They saw me as a whistleblower. Neither Hope nor Sunny could have cared less about staff morale. It was typical of both of the embittered hags to accept hearsay as fact. They rarely did their diligence in getting both sides before plotting a course of action. Oh, and plot they did. Unfortunately, the following shows they responded to my complaints of workplace and bullying with malicious intent. It was at this point I began receiving customer complaints. Most of the time, Hope and Sunny would take the word of so-called customer, or the server passing the complaint, without offering up any proof of discrepancy had ever occurred. I later came to learn the complaints were completely fabricated. It was really just a coworker trying to stir the pot. The whole horror story came to its climax when a cokehead, now former employee, circulated a rumor that I refused to wait on an elderly African-American military veteran because I was a racist. Being one myself, I respect all veterans. I found it alarmingly laughable, at best because 1, I'm a very gay man, And 2, most of my boyfriends haven't been white. Hell, everyone including Hope and Sunny met my Brazilian ex-boyfriend when he had previously popped in for Sunday brunch. So you can understand why this accusation was out of character and completely out of the blue. It reeked of sabotage, and it was too outlandish to be anything else. So the write-up came, and I was absolutely furious as my suspicions that I'd been set up were confirmed. Both Hope and Sunny would not let me get a word in. I finally got their attention by stating in a raised voice that I had a right to have my say. Surprised at my assertiveness, they both went slit-eyed and rather smugly said, "Go on." I pointed out to them that all of my guests love me. Several of my regulars are Hispanic or African American, and in nearly 8 years of employment, never once had I been accused of being prejudiced or bigoted. I also pointed out that one of my regulars, a married female African American doctor, if my hands were free, would run up to me to give me a big hug, kiss me on the cheek, and hold me so tight I felt like I was being suffocated. Hope and Sunny were having none of it. I also pointed out that the drama-starting liar who filed the complaint against me had been fired because she was caught by Hope snorting coke in the ladies' restroom. Given her predisposition to lie, the validity of her accusation should be questioned and the write-up destroyed. Based off their surprised expressions, it was clear I had exposed their complicitness in creating a hostile work environment, but they refused to take the bait. Completely done with it all, I flat out bellowed, "I am not, nor have I ever been, a racist." I'm pretty sure the entire store heard me. Then I went for the zinger that lingers. You have no idea how many black men have been in my bed. You could have heard a pin drop. Diamanda, the Creole prep cook, was walking by the opened office door when I let out that line, and she nearly doubled over with laughter. There were 2 training managers facing away from us while they were on the computer doing online courses. They almost collapsed onto the keyboard, then turned around looking at me with shocked expressions on their faces. Sunny's face went beet red. Hope's face turned white and her eyes widened. "You know what, Hope? Remember how you said if I didn't like the way you ran things, I should quit? Goodbye." I didn't give them a chance to respond. My shift was about to start in less than 7 minutes. I took off my key fob and laid it on the safe, emptied my apron, and put everything in a takeout bag, and did an about face and walked out echoing, "Have fun trying to cover my shifts." It was exhilarating and liberating all at the same time. It was like the end of Private Benjamin when Goldie Hawn walked out of her wedding and threw away her veil. Except I've never worn a dress. Just kidding. Yes, I have. Aside from returning 2 weeks later to get my final paycheck, I haven't set foot in there. I have no reason to go back. I have a new job at a wonderful company with a great boss that values me as an employee and as a person. I actually look forward to going to work now. I never thought that was possible. Double plus, they don't expect me to be an emotionless robot. TLDR, I slaved away at a horrible job for nearly 8 years working for inept bully bosses. When I got tired of being treated poorly, they started dropping poison in my file. I quit before they could fire me and left after an epic mic drop. Edit. For those of you who are triggered in declaring that I could still be a racist or that my attraction to ethnic men is just a fetish, tell that to my boyfriend and kindly F in the direction of off. Save your race card pulling unintelligible psychobabble for someone without a brain. We all bleed red, and it's people like you and my former witch boss who create the problems in this world. Update. I later found out from a former co-worker's boyfriend that Hope was talking all this smack after I quit about how I wouldn't sign a write-up. That was between myself and management. No other subordinates should have had any knowledge of that. I wasn't surprised at all, since she talked crap about everyone to anyone who would listen. She was also stewing because I had quit right then and there when current bi-weekly schedule had been posted. My absence left them in a pickle, mostly because trying to get my former coworkers to pick up my extra shifts they didn't want was like pulling teeth. When I returned with my uniforms to get my final paycheck, Hope had already ducked out to avoid having to see me. Funny how people who thrive on conflict run from it when they're not the one in the orchestra pit. Sunny, who I thought was alright before all this went down, did a swap for the grocery bag containing my shirts for my check. She wouldn't hand it to me herself and simply passed it to one of the training managers who was present. It was a very cramped establishment within the server line in full view from the dining room. I'm not that tall, and neither is Sunny. She could barely see me over the top of the server station. Upon spotting me with her brown beady vulture eyes, I got a completely out of character, overly exaggerating, sickeningly sweet grin from her. "Hi, OP. Well, past the point of giving any damns," I said. "Why are you talking to me? You're one of the reasons why I quit." Dead silence. Lou, my 60-something former coworker, who gets along with everyone, was sitting down less than 2 feet away from me. I had a hot-cold relationship with her. Lou looked up from rolling silverware and kindly rolled her eyes, which was accompanied by one of her trademark sneers, because even she didn't like Sunny. I snatched my check from the training manager. Several of my regulars were asking why I was dressed normally that day. I usually worked my shift on payday, and I told them I had quit 2 weeks earlier. Many of them made general comments, but the management had been foolish to have that decision in losing me. They said they were sorry to see me go and probably wouldn't return without me being there to serve them. I told them I wasn't sorry to be gone, and I stormed out. And that about does it for today's episode of r/MaliciousCompliance. If you liked it, make sure to leave a like on this video and check out our other stuff because you'll probably like that too. As always, my name's Ryan, the official host here at Reddit Voice, and I look forward to seeing each and every one of you guys in the next video.